Today is a very exciting video because today is all about adjustment layers, what an adjustment layer is, how to use them, when to use them, all in Affinity Photo on the iPad. Adjustment layers are absolutely fundamental. There's so many things you can do with adjustment layers that will take your photos to the next level. If you don't know what adjustment layers are, this is the video for you. If you can't already tell, I'm very excited for this video. It's a video I've been looking forward to making for a long time because adjustment layers are brilliant. I love adjustment layers. In every project I use, there's multiple adjustment layers. And the things you can do with adjustment layers are absolutely unbelievable. Follow along if you can. The links of these images are in the description below. So let's get into it. A few videos ago, it was Captain America helping us learn all about masking in the masking video. Today, it's the turn of Spider-Man. Spider-Man's helping us learn about adjustment layers. Who would have thought? Not only can he fight crime, but he's also great at adjustment layers and teaching adjustment layers too. This is a poster for Spider-Man Homecoming, or one of the many posters for Spider-Man Homecoming. I've just downloaded it off the internet, put it into Affinity Photo, and now I'm just going to crop it in. I'm going to click on the crop tool just because I don't want this here information. So just before we get into adjustment layers, I'm going to do a few wee things. I'm going to crop it in. I've just moved it up with my finger and I'm just going to hit apply, and that just takes out just unwanted text and information that I don't really care about. For the purpose of this video, just to explain adjustment layers a wee bit better, there's a few layers I want to build up, have a few layers in this project, just so we can explain what adjustment layers is better. And for that to happen, I want to actually make a selection of Spider-Man here. I want to cut him out, and for that I'm going to go into the selections persona. And if you've been watching my videos, you know where I'm going to go next. It's the smart selection brush. And I'm just going to zoom in, try to get a decent width, and I'm just going to select Spider-Man as much as I can, and I'm going to try to do a pretty decent job of him. Again, two fingers will move the canvas, and I'll maybe have to bring down the brush size just a wee bit. I know there's some bits that's going over, but that's okay for the time being. I'll clean them up in a wee second. I'm just trying to get all the wee bits. And if you know how to do this, I'll maybe put a marker on the video of when the actual adjustment layers bit of the tutorial will come into play. So that should be appearing on the screen now. So that's everything more or less selected. I'm just going to change the mode to subtract now, because as you probably noticed, there's some bits which I don't want, like this here wee bit of the building between Spider-Man's legs there, and just this bit here. If I don't get this bit of the boot, I'm not too worried. If it's just the coloured bits that I really want, and this big blue bit. And now you see I've selected that. I'll have to go back to add, just to add this wee bit in. That is looking pretty good. Just subtract, there's just a few wee bits of the building here. And I'll leave the link of this picture in the description below, just in case you want to try it yourself. So that looks pretty good. I think that's Spider-Man selected. Nope, there's a wee bit there I've missed. I'll try to get this bit of the leg without getting the window. So if I zoom out now, is that Spider-Man selected? I believe it is. I'm just going to go to Refined Edge, and without doing anything, Refined Edge will try to clean up the edges by itself. And that's how it's looking. There's a few wee things I could fix, but for the purpose of this video, I'm happy enough. I'll maybe bring it down a wee bit just to see if I can clean this up. That's maybe better the way it was before. So yeah, I'm happy enough with that. That's it looking. You can see there's some artifacts here. if I was doing this for a quote-unquote real project, I'd probably do a selection or maybe even use the pen tool to go round. But for the purposes of this video, this here's great, transparent, you can see in black and white, that looks well. So in the output, I'm not wanting a selection, I'm not wanting a mask, I'm not wanting a new layer, I'm wanting a new layer with a mask. And what this will do, if I apply it, is now I have Spider-Man on one layer and then the background on another. So I have two different layers, and I'm actually going to do something amazing and name the layers. Normally I don't do it, but for good housekeeping, you should always name your layers. It's a bad habit of mine that sometimes I don't, but on this occasion I've remembered. Now I'll just go into the other layer and just make it a Spider-Man background. So now we have our two layers, one layer on and off, the other layer on and off. And I want to bring in something else. I'm going to go into Google Chrome, and if by magic I've already got the logo I want, if I just go to this tab, I simply searched in Spider-Man Homecoming for a range of posters. This is the poster I picked. Again, the link for this poster will be down in the description below. In a new tab, I simply wrote Spider-Man Homecoming logo. So I'm going to tap one finger, hold it down, copy image, bring it back into Affinity Photo, tap one finger here. Nothing's coming up. Don't panic. The reason for that is because we're still in the selections persona. If we go to the photo persona, now tap one finger, you will see we can paste our logo, which that looks kind of cool. Not the intended purpose, but that's the beauty of masking, and that's where the text is behind Spider-Man. Although it's not in the right place, it does look kind of cool, and this kind of imagery is quite nice. Kind of putting it, if we move it there, that kind of looks nice. His hands kind of slightly over it, and you do different things like that, which is kind of cool. But I think I'm just going to be a bit more traditional and not to confuse things. I'm going to center it and bring it down here, roughly about there, and that's looking really well. And I'll maybe, as I'm on a roll, I will also rename this. I'll just name this logo, and I'll just bring that up to the top. So we've got our logo, we've got Spider-Man and the Spider-Man background. Now, you came for adjustment layer training, and adjustment layer training you will get. If we click into this icon of the three wee dots, you will see we are now in the adjustment studio. The brilliant thing about the adjustment studio is not only does it name what the different adjustments are, there's also a bit of a preview or a possible preview of what that change will do. So there's black and white. Obviously it makes it black and white. Brightness and contrast. There's different things, color balance, exposure, gradient map. That looks a bit mad. There's quite a few different adjustments we can apply to. And for the sake of this video, we'll go to the very top, just so you can really see what's going on here. Is I will change this to black and white, or I will add a black and white adjustment layer, and boom, everything's now black and white, and it doesn't look great. That's okay, we'll do something about that. The main thing you want to do is go into layers. Straight away now, you will see a new layer has been added. It's a white square with a wee black and white icon, and it actually says black and white adjustment. So you don't even need to name the adjustment layers. We can add another adjustment layer just very quickly. We'll add a brightness and contrast, and you will see brightness stroke contrast adjustment layer. I'll just delete that for the time being. But it's quite nice when you add the adjustment layer, the name comes on. So if you're adding lots and lots, you'll know straight away what the different adjustment layers are. So how do adjustment layers work? Adjustment layers work. Anything under an adjustment layer will be affected by that adjustment layer. So at the minute, black and white adjustment layer is at the very top of our layer stack. We could have 100 layers, 200 layers, 300 layers. It doesn't matter. If the adjustment layer is at the very top of all those layers, everything below that, every layer below that adjustment layer will be affected by that adjustment layer. In this case, it's the black and white adjustment layer. If we move this down to say below the logo, I'll try that again, just hold it, click, hold and drag. Now, the adjustment layer is not affecting the logo. That's because the logo layer is above the adjustment layer. It's above it, so it's not affecting it. At the minute, it's only affecting the Spider-Man and the Spider-Man background layer here. If we move it further down, we will see it's only affecting the background layer. It's not affecting the logo. It's not affecting the Spider-Man that we cut out. Remember, this is just a Spider-Man that's been cut out using the Smart Selection brush and masked. And if you don't know much about masking, please check out my video on masking, because you'll know from it straight away that this is a mask layer. You can see a wee black and white image. The black bit will show what's been masked out and the white bit will show what's being revealed. And then if we twirl down, we can turn that masking layer on and off. So we'll just turn that background layer on again. If we bring the adjustment layer to the very bottom, what's going to happen? It's not going to affect anything, because there's nothing below this adjustment layer. Adjustment layer will only affect what's below it. So again, if I move, or just for something different, if we move the logo down below this adjustment layer, this logo will now be affected by the adjustment layer and will turn black and white. We'll just try it again. Aha, or does it, Andrew? You've made a bit of a mistake there. Bit of a rookie mistake. Oh, that's layers 101, which you can also find in another video. The reason why the logo's disappeared, of course, is because the background layer is above it. So this will be completely hidden. So I have to bring, if I just hide this now, the background layer, you will see the logo is black and white. And if I bring this Spider-Man below the adjustment layer again, it turns black and white. And it doesn't matter what's on top, what's below. I can change these, interchange them. Doesn't matter the order, because they're both being affected by the adjustment layer. And I'll just show this again and bring it down to the very bottom. So for the purposes of this video, I would like the adjustment layer in between the Spider-Man layer and the background layer. And I think this is looking pretty cool. It's really nice, actually. Spider-Man really stands out. The logo really stands out. But I would do something a wee bit different if I was working on this, which I am, so I will. I would change this to an empty mask layer. But just before I do that, if you can get your head around how to use masks, how masks work in Affinity Photo, and how to use adjustment layers, masks and adjustment layers are so powerful when you use them together. And we're going to have just a very quick look at that now. So this adjustment layer is brilliant. If we go to the plus icon, I'm going to go to the empty mask layer. And what's that going to do? It's going to just completely hide the whole adjustment layer. So not only can you mask out maybe logos or Spider-Man or backgrounds, you can even apply masks to adjustment layers. If I twirl this down, you can see, if you remember from the mask video, and it's nice because it's named this mask, black means hidden. Think of nighttime. At nighttime, it's dark, it's black, you can't see anything. And if it's white time, think of daylight, sunlight, it reveals things. So what I'm going to do at the minute is, we've got black, so the whole adjustment layer is hidden. So if I go to the paintbrush, if I change this to white, because I want the black and white adjustment layer revealed. And if I go to width, and if I bring the width up really big, I think it would be quite nice to maybe just really feather all this bit out. And what's happening now, and again, that's just personal preference. You might like it black and white with the colours popping out. You might like it nothing black and white, or you might like what I've done here. And simply, if you go into the adjustment layer, or if you go into layers, you will see under the mask now, if I just turn that on and off, you can see it's just revealing the blue sky. and everything else, the rest of New York City and the Avengers Tower, I believe this is, or it looks like, is now black and white. And that's quite nice because if we turn off the adjustment layer, it's quite blue here and it looks grand, but I think just by making that black and white, it just makes Spider-Man pop a wee bit more. It makes the logo pop a wee bit more. And out of curiosity, I'll just hide Spider-Man. You can see that's why we duplicated Spider-Man, because he's being affected by the mask, and that's why he's above. But I'm not finished there on adjustment layers. Maybe I want Spider-Man and this logo to pop even more. So we'll go into our adjustment layers again and just see what we could pick. Recolor's mad. I'm not going to use it in this tutorial, but Recolor's an adjustment layer I use quite a lot, and it's really powerful, and there'll be videos coming at some stage where I talk about that. And when we go up to the top, and when we go to brightness and contrast, now it says, very briefly there, it says the adjustment layer's been applied. If we go in, seeing I had this here adjustment layer selected, it's just moved it to the top of the adjustment layer. So I'm going to move it all the way to the top. Nothing, the contextual menu is not appearing. That's because I have to click on this wee icon or double tap it. Now if I bring the brightness up, I'll bring it up too far just to show you what's happening, because there's something else when it comes to adjustment layers which I want to do. Say for instance I want this Spider-Man only to be affected by this adjustment layer. If I can certainly bring it down below the logo, so the adjustment layer is not affecting the Spider-Man logo, which is great. But the problem is the adjustment layer is still affecting Spider-Man, which is what we want, but it's also affecting the background. We don't want it to affect the background. So what do? Well, this is the power of adjustment layers. Not only can we affect whatever's below this adjustment layer, we can also make it affect just a certain layer. And for that to happen, we'll hold our finger down and we actually bring it on to the layer we want affected, which is the Spider-Man layer. So normally in a layer, you can see a blue line go below Spider-Man, above Spider-Man. But you can also put this blue line, you can also drag it into the middle of Spider-Man. If we drag it into the middle of Spider-Man, let go, boom. Now Spider-Man is only being affected by this brightness and contrast adjustment layer. Now that looks awful, but just for the purposes of it, you'll see why that is. I'll double click into this again. Brightness is far too much. I'll maybe bring it to 0. Maybe bring the contrast up or down. Maybe bring the contrast up, maybe 50%. And I'll maybe bring the brightness up 25%. And just by turning this adjustment layer off, that makes quite a big difference. Spider-Man was popping before, but he's really popping now, so he is. And I'm not finished with Spider-Man just yet, because you can apply several adjustment layers to the same layer. So I'm going to go into the adjustment layers again. I'm going to go down to HSL and click on it. And HSL stands for hue, saturation and lightness. And if we go back into layers, we'll see, seeing the brightness and contrast was already selected. It's just simply moved, or simply put the HSL adjustment layer above it. So we don't even need to drag it in to the middle of the Spider-Man layer. Just out of curiosity, we'll just bring it up to the very top, double tap on it to see what mad stuff we can do. We'll change the colors, which affects absolutely everything. Looks more like a Green Goblin version of Spider-Man now, doesn't it? And here's Green Goblin here. We'll move it down to below the logo. It's still affecting everything. I want it just to affect Spider-Man. And there we go. We've got a Green Goblin version of Spider-Man. Maybe for Spider-Man 4. Who knows? We'll click in the range. We'll bring it back to 0, as that's what it was. Or we'll double tap on it. It can be a wee bit fiddly sometimes. Or double tap and just resets it. And I might make it I might saturate it just a wee bit more. We can go mad and really saturate it to 100%, or we can take the saturation down, which means we're draining everything away from Spider-Man We'll bring it up to about, yeah, 20%. And then if we turn this on and off, you can see the red's just popping a wee bit more. And this is looking a really nice poster from what it began with. There's maybe a few wee things I would do with this poster before I go. There's one thing, and then I'm going to add another layer, one final layer, and do an adjustment on it because we talked about the Recolour. I want to use it before I go. But before I do that, I'm going to go into this logo. What I normally do with logos is make a bit of a drop shadow because it looks okay here, but Marvel Studios and Homecoming, it just could do with a wee bit of a drop shadow just to set it off the page a wee bit. So I'm going to go to FX, outer shadow, click on outer shadow. There's a whole video on outer shadow that I made some time ago. You can check that out if you want more detail. And just by hitting the offset to 10 and maybe make the radius 5, maybe the opacity 75, that's a wee bit much. Maybe the offset 5. Let's see how that looks just by turning this on and off. Yeah, I quite like that. It just, certainly in this Homecoming, it just sets it off a wee bit more. And that's looking really nice. I'm going to bring in one more layer, and it's a lens flare, because of course you need a lens flare on a movie poster, don't you? So just off camera, I actually brought in a lens flare. I'll talk more about lens flares and where I got this one at a later date, but you can see the lens flare just comes in and it looks absolutely awful. It's on a black background. It's just making the poster not look great at all. If I go into this layer, click the 3 dots, and now go into the blending modes. Normally screen is what you want to go to. Screen or sometimes overlay. Overlay's not looking good here, so screen. And if you don't know what to go into, just flick through them all, and some of them look quite cool and some of them look absolutely horrendous. But just for the sake of this tutorial, I am going to go into screen and I'm going to position it. This is quite a high res lens flare, and I'll maybe bring it up the side of this building a wee bit. And at the minute it's at the top of the layer stack. I want to bring it to the very bottom. Well, maybe not the very bottom, because now it's made it black and white. I want to bring it below, or above, sorry, that adjustment layer. And that's looking pretty cool. That's looking pretty cool, but it is, for me, the wrong color. And that's where I want to add an adjustment layer on the lens flare. And as I mentioned earlier on, if I go to, is it down here? Yep, Recolour. Boom, straight away. It's made absolutely everything red. And by now you'll probably know why it's made absolutely everything red. On this occasion, I probably didn't have a layer selected, and it's just put the Recolour adjustment layer at the very, very top. So if I want to, I can move this down through the different layers, so it's not going to affect the logo, it's not going to affect Spider-Man, it's not going to affect the lens flare, but I do want it to affect just the lens flare. So I'm going to move it to the middle of the lens flare layer. Oh, we'll try it again. Move it to the middle, let go, and now it's red. And that's looking pretty cool. If I click into the Recolour adjustment layer, I can change the saturation. I like it 100%. I can change the hue, so we can go to all different colours. I'm going to keep it at this red colour. Now, I noticed that it's not quite, this lens flare is not quite in the location I want, because you can still see it's chopping off a bit of red there. So if I bring that down, maybe tempted just to stretch it out a wee bit, or maybe make it more in line with the video, with the with the building. How's that looking? Again, this is just personal preference. You could play about with this. I kind of like it going diagonal. You could play about with it all day. Maybe stretch that. And that looks pretty cool. I'm really happy with that. And it's a nice poster, but not only is it a nice poster, hopefully if you followed along, you've learned an awful lot about adjustment layers. I'm kind of tempted to add another adjustment layer just for one more example. And maybe do something on this text. Let's go into the adjustment layer to see if there's anything else I want to do on it. Maybe do a curves adjustment. So again, curves has been added to the top. I want to move it to the middle of the logo. And if I just click into this curves, I'll just move this up here, make it nice and big. And sometimes you've heard of an S curve, where it just brightens up the shadows, brightens up the highlights, bringing this up, and darkens the shadows. And it just adds a bit of a, it's called an S curve because it looks a bit of an S, and you can make it more like an S if you want. So I'll just bring that up a wee bit, darken that, and we'll just turn that on and off. It's probably done quite little, but it has actually brightened up the yellow a wee bit and darkened the shadows. And now I think that is us. Again, what's nice about adjustment layers is you can turn all these wee arrows up, and it just really makes the Layer Studio a lot neater. And then if it's just the logo you want to affect, or Spider-Man's got quite a few adjustment layers here on it. Look at that, that's made some difference. And then the lens flare too. So there you go. Adjustment layers are so powerful. If you can get your head around masks and adjustment layers, you'll go far, and you'll enjoy the tutorials coming up, because in a lot of my posters that I make, masks and adjustment layers are used time and time again. You can really get creative results with it, and it's very exciting, and there's lots more exciting tutorials coming up. So there you have it. Hopefully you really enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something and have a much better understanding of what adjustment layers are. If you don't, please rewatch this video, or there's timestamps in the description below. If you want to go back over certain things, that might be helpful too. Adjustment layers are so powerful, and going forward, more of my tutorials is going to include adjustment layers and masks. If you can get to grips with masking and adjustment layers, they are both a fantastic combination. You can do so much with it, and in the future tutorials we're going to be looking a lot at those two things. So it's good if you can learn the fundamentals and get your head around it, especially how it works in Affinity Photo on the iPad. It's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what you make with adjustment layers and masks. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, if you found value in it, please hit the like button, please subscribe, because there's going to be so many more videos coming, looking at adjustment layers, looking at masks, doing more fun projects like this. Please feel free to leave a comment below. I read and reply to each and every one. Until the next time, thanks for watching, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.